Dr. Prithiviraj Fernando, we're honored to have you on this conversation. Thank you. And I know you like to be called Pruthu. Now, you have an interesting history which I want to share with our listeners. You started and qualified as a medical doctor, and then you decided that the elephants were calling. You have an incredible history. You have been in Oregon University in the US. You've studied the genetic ecology and conservation of the Asian elephant. You've gone on to Columbia University in New York. You conducted research on Asian elephants and the Javan rhinos. You've done field work in Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Laos, Cambodia, Borneo, and Bangladesh. But thank goodness for Sri Lanka that you decided to return. We are truly blessed that you took that decision, and today you are chairman of the Center for Conservation and Research. You're also a research associate with the Smithsonian Institute, and you've received the Whitley Award for Nature Conservation and Presidential Awards for Scientific Excellence. Puthu, the president downwards, countries around the world have recognized you for your commitment to elephants. And today we want to talk a little bit about elephants. Welcome.
Thank you, Dilhan, for that long introduction. Yeah, I'm always happy to talk about elephants.
We're going to start with the inevitable. You know, we read about elephants, we see them, people talk about their majesty and so on. What is it that makes elephants special? We read about emotional sensitivity, we talk about, or we hear about the structure of elephant herds, how they have their emotional connection, their sensitivity in terms of their relationships, and they really sound unique. But please tell us, what really makes elephants special?
Well, I don't know what's not special about elephants, you know. if you look at an elephant, it's such a huge animal. It's the largest animal on land. And then in addition to that, it has this very strange appendage called a trunk, which no other animal has. It's like a fifth hand. So just from appearances itself, the males have tusks. If it's African elephants, both the males and females have tusks. So it's something that is, I would say, very unique just by appearance. But not only that, even if you look at their social structure, their intelligence, their behavior, I think practically everything about elephants is very special.
There's also often talk of how elephants really mourn and grieve and feel emotional stress in many situations. Is there anything that you have to add there?
Clearly, so elephants are intelligent animals. They are also animals that have the capacity to recognize individuals and perhaps recognize themselves as individuals. So, in a way, if you look at intelligence, we consider ourselves to be the most intelligent animal on Earth. And elephants are also a very intelligent animal. So they have a very, very good memory. They have a very big brain, just the size of the brain. And so I think, like I said, every way you look at an elephant, it's very special, especially their social organization. So they have a very characteristic social organization where the males and females as adults have very different social structures. The females and the young live in groups, and the males leave the groups when they come into puberty, about 10 to 15 years of age. And as adults, they are single, mostly solitary animals. But still, even the adult males, of course, they have associations with the herds. Maybe they are the herd they were born into, as well as other herds that are in their area. But in addition to that, now we are beginning to realize that even the males themselves have a different social structure among themselves between the individual males. Some males are hanging out together a lot of the time. So it's something very interesting. And practically most of what is known about elephant behavior has been based on African savanna elephant. There have been some very famous researchers who have worked on them for a very long time, very famous scientists. So we have a wealth of knowledge about their behavior. And we always assumed that it was the same for Asian elephants. But what we are seeing now is that it may not be so, that Asian elephants have their own types of behavior and own social organization, which in principle may be somewhat similar to African elephants, but also is quite different from African elephants.
Is it correct to say that, like Sri Lankan society, that elephants are a matriarchal society?
Yes, absolutely. So because of this, what we call sexually dimorphic social structure, the males and the females having different social structures, the females living in groups. So now, based on African elephants, it has always been assumed that there is a leader, which is the oldest female in a group. And so from a structural point of view, the oldest female, a group is composed of a female, her young, and their own young, and mostly the females, the female offspring, as well as the younger males. So in a single herd, you might have about 3 generations of elephants. So it has always been assumed that the oldest female, the grandmother of them all, or maybe even the great-grandmother of them all, plays a leading role and has been named a matriarch. And this is something that has been seen in African savanna elephants. But when we look at our elephants, Asian elephants, as well as particularly Sri Lankan elephants, we don't see a clear leadership role for the oldest female. So you can identify often an oldest female in a group, but she doesn't seem to show such a strong leadership role. And also the groups in Asian elephants tend to be somewhat smaller than with African elephants. So there's a lot that we really don't know about Asian elephants, even though, strange enough, it's the Asian elephants that have had the closest association with people for thousands of years. But we still really don't know much about them at all.
So, Prithu, amongst your other accolades and recognitions, the president of Sri Lanka has invited you to find a solution to the human-elephant conflict, and that's a huge responsibility. But the conflict itself it's tragic. Is there a way that we can manage this conflict sustainably?
Absolutely, but it's not easy. So human-elephant conflict is a very complex thing. And the thing is, now, clearly, when there's conflict between two groups, whether it's humans and elephants or humans and humans or whatever, clearly both parties suffer from the conflict. So yes, elephants suffer and people suffer. But when it comes to human-elephant conflict, we really mostly ignore the elephant part of it. We focus practically only on the human aspect of human-elephant conflicts. So the best example of that is if you look at the measures that we take to mitigate the human-elephant conflict, the main methods are we capture elephants, put them in a truck, take them far away and dump them in some far away remote protected area. We drive elephants out of the areas that they have been born and been living for generations. We drive them by force away from those lands and restrict them to some protected area and put up a fence. We distribute firecrackers to farmers to confront elephants and throw these firecrackers at them. So I'm not saying that any of these are wrong as such, but the point is these are only directed towards finding a solution or more to manage the problems that people have from elephants. And in fact, many of these measures actually cause a lot of problems for elephants. So, but looking at it, even from a people's point of view, the unfortunate thing is that we have thought that this is something very simple, that you can do one thing and solve the problem forever. But it is something very complex. I mean, people are very complex, elephants are very complex. So inevitably, the conflict is a very complex thing. It differs from place to place, area to area, depending on the people, depending on the elephants, depending on the location. So there are a lot of complexity. But the main thing is there is nothing, no one thing that any one group or person can do that's going to solve this. So in order to manage the conflict, lots of agencies, lots of people have to come together, and a lot of things need to be done. And that needs a very strong leadership to make that happen.
Prithu, there's lots of discussion about elephants in zoos and so on. And I know it becomes a heated argument because of the social structure that we spoke of. What is your opinion? What's your take on that? Is it, from an educational research, I guess, charismatic perspective, is it acceptable to have 2 or 3 elephants in a zoo, or what is? I'm sorry, I'm probably asking you a difficult question, and if you prefer not to answer, that's fine. But I'm interested to know your perspective.
So yes, so there is the broader aspect of elephants in captivity per se, and the elephants in zoos are a subsection of that. So just from a elephant point of view, if you have a single animal, given that, as you say, that they have such a social structure, whether even the males, it's probably not a great thing for that elephant. So, and then you have degrees of captivity and the degrees of how much interaction these animals have with other animals, other elephants, as well as even people. So again, it's not a black and white thing. There's lots of shades of gray here. So currently, most international zoos are going away from having one or a single animal or 1 or 2 elephants in captivity. So they are trying to form a social group if they have elephants, so that they have some sort of social structure. So that, I think, is a good thing. But also, many Western zoos particularly have become very adverse to one-on-one interaction with elephants. That's partly driven by the possible potential danger to people who interact with elephants. A number of people have got killed through the years. So now, if you actually have a sufficient number of elephants and they are in a large enough area that they can interact with each other, they have social interactions, I think that provides perhaps the best possible situation for an elephant in captivity. If you fall short of that, you already have elephants in captivity, which are maybe single or maybe 1 or 2 animals, and you cannot provide for them to have a larger group and the surroundings. In that situation, if the elephant cannot even have that sort of social interaction with people, I think it is a very sad situation for that animal.
Prithu, with all these challenges, what's happening to elephants around the world, whether Africa, Asia, Sri Lanka, and so on? I mean, generally.
I think elephants are symptomatic of all the other species. Most other species, as you know, are doing pretty badly and doing worse every day. It's only a very, very few species who have managed to live with us. Things like cockroaches and rats and things like that are doing pretty well. But all the other animals, most of them are doing badly and worse on a day-by-day basis. So with elephants, for any animal, I mean, we change the environment so much that most animals can no longer live in that environment. So habitat loss and environment is, I would say, the biggest threat to elephants as well as all these animals. But with elephants, there are additional issues. So with African elephants, a huge problem is the poaching for tusks. I mean, how pathetic is that? We are killing these majestic animals, we are slaughtering them just for the sake of 2 teeth. So that is a huge problem in Africa. And then the human-elephant conflict. That's probably a bigger problem in Asia than in Africa, but even in Africa, it's becoming a bigger problem. And in Asia, it's, I would say, the biggest threat, secondary to the habitat loss, which is also associated with the conflict for elephants.
Well, we must hope that with all the signs around us that that humanity will wake up. I think there was, even in the last week, there was some terribly disturbing reports about how we are ourselves creating or fueling an existential threat to humanity. But I guess that's a subject of another and much longer podcast. I want to conclude, Prithu, with an interesting question that I know many will be interested to know the answer to. Are elephants really afraid of mice?
Well, elephants, if there was an elephant that had not met a mouse before, he would be very scared of the mouse. Elephants, like ourselves, I suppose, like all animals, fear the unknown. So anything that is new, that is strange, that they have not experienced before, they would be scared of. But elephants are also extremely adaptable and pretty intelligent. So in a little while, I'm pretty sure that he will overcome his fear of mice.
Thank you very much, Prithu. Prithu, it's really been an honor chatting with you. You are an incredibly accomplished person with tremendous integrity in the field. And I'm really privileged that we are able to share your thoughts in this conversation with our audience. Prithu, thank you very much. We are honored to have had you on the show, and I wish you a wonderful weekend.
Thank you very much, Dilhan. It's been a pleasure.